Hey guys, just a quick editor's note. Now, it's come to my attention that the Promised Neverland episode 5 skips over an entire arc in the Promised Neverland. That's unexpected. I see a lot of negative comments about it. So I just wanted to point that out. I did not know that prior to recording my review. I still think as the episode stands alone, my comments kind of still reflect what I thought of it, but I wouldn't say it's not weird. But I just wanted you to know that this might be a little bit of a controversial review, even though I didn't mean it to be. All right, let's get on with the show. Oh my god! Oh my god! Norman! Episode 5 of Season 2 of The Promised Neverland really showed off some interesting things. And it wasn't even that much of an action-packed episode. There was just a lot of different things that I honestly was not expecting to be touched on so early on in the series. So last episode, the kids get blown out of the hideout. They're being attacked by these guys in like SWAT gear, and they're basically being hunted now. I did not expect them to suddenly do a time skip a full year in the future. That was not expected for me. That being said, it does kind of make sense because in the opening, they look a little older. Not like a ton older, they're still kids. But they look a little taller, a little bit more together, and they all have like their like matching gear, which we don't really know where they got that, but that's probably not very important in itself. But yeah, this episode we learned that the kids have been basically living as best as they can, and back in the hideout they had all the provisions and stuff that they could use, but now they're kind of on their own again, and they're hiding out in this like castle or something like that, or maybe this like cathedral looking place. It's got like some giant towers or whatever that they use as a lookout. But they're hiding out. They're doing the best they can, but they're not exactly living comfortably. What's more is that they're not only just hunting in the forest, but they're also going out into like demon towns, and like they dress up in these cloaks and they have these fake demon masks on that they can put on, and it's actually a really interesting episode to see what the other side of everything is like. Now granted, we don't know what the human world is like, but the demon world seems kind of more complicated than I was expecting, honestly. Even in the demon world, there's kind of a class system. So obviously you have the demons that are like involved in the farming process, so they probably eat pretty well, they probably live pretty decent lives, but the further you go down, the less great it seems. We started this episode out in a town, a relatively small but bustling town of the demon world, and you see all these demons that kind of look like Mujika and Sonju, and they're just kind of like, they're all living their lives. Some are selling things. The very first shot of this episode is a literal jar of heads, a bunch of kids. There's and also jars and vials of children's hands, which is gruesome to say. And I think it's actually a pretty good start of the episode. This episode, I think, is way more important, not because of the kids themselves, but because we get to see how the other half lives. We see a couple of demons that are kind of like, I guess they're brothers or something like that, and they can only really afford a single hand, but they have I think it's like a sister or something like that as the demon, but she's got a hand coming out of her head, and then some kind of pet, maybe, or maybe another sibling. But they're trying to provide for their own family, but they don't seem to have the cash, they don't have the resources to do so. And you even hear them scheming like, oh, hey, those Gracefield kids are still out there. Maybe we could go find them? I don't know. They seem to think that's a pipe dream at one point, until later on in the episode where they kind of find them. I think one of the most interesting parts of this episode is it shows the kids walking through these towns, or I guess one town, dressed as demons, and they're able to, other than their smell, which maybe they do something to try to hide that too, but other than their smell, they're basically able to blend in with the crowd, and nobody knows otherwise. So we got demons who are unable to feed themselves and are living kind of in squalor. We have the kids who are on the run constantly and are hiding out, and apparently they've had a good 6 months without having any real incidents, but ultimately they're still not doing super great. They can't get the food and provisions that they need all the time. And it's really interesting to see that, like, not only just the kids and presumably other humans that are just like living on the demon world, but also the demons aren't doing so well. You have this old demon show up at their castle. It must be like it must not be a castle. It must be like a cathedral or a church or something like that. But he shows up and he's blind clearly because he's got a walking stick or a cane, and all the kids are scared. But I get the feeling that they maybe have seen this guy before, or maybe they're just like are realizing that he's blind. So they all be quiet and they all kind of let him do his thing, and he makes an offering to an altar, which kind of looks like Mujika. I thought it maybe was the kids doing, and they put it up there, and they were like, "Oh, hey, here's our friend," which. But it sounds like it's just a offering that like maybe occasionally demons show up and kind of give their offerings and whatnot to it. And that's another interesting moment because when he's trying to give his offering, he drops his cane, then he drops like his offering, like which is basically like, I don't know, I guess it's fruit or something like that. And it's a moment of like very like you have the kids who are afraid of him because if he knew, he would probably try to eat them. I mean, granted, he's blind and old, so it's like, but like it's possible that like he would have had some. He would have known that they were there, and he would have told others that the kids were there. But Emma takes a leap of faith and kind of helps him out, and like picks up the fruit and helps him. And he doesn't really know that they're not demons. He thinks they're just demon kids. It's a really interesting scenario in which, like, demons and humans theoretically could live together in harmony even. And we even see this with Mujika and Sonju. But, like, because of the promise, because of how things have just always been, it seems like one of those things where it's just, like, it's teetering on the edge there. But it's really interesting to see these kinds of interactions when... Otherwise, we've seen big monstrous demons chasing after the kids or just some awful, horrific things going on. This was also another episode confirming that I really like Toma. I think his name is Toma. Toma and Lonnie. The two of them are really cool. I like them. I think they're like... So if you got Emma and Ray, who are the leaders, and then under them are Don and Gilda, I think Toma and Lonnie are like the next... Are the next people under there to be like, oh, hey, they're young right now, but they could be the next like kind of leader class if we're gonna rank them in any way. Now, at some point, the kids have to go back out into town, and normally it's just like Ray, Emma, Don, and Gilda, and maybe somebody else. But normally it's just them, and because they're the oldest and they're gonna keep the lowest profile. But Toma and Lonnie go with them this time, and things kind of go off the rails for a minute. On their way back home, they end up running into those two demons that were kind of thinking about looking for the Gracefield kids, but they weren't 100% sure. And they kind of pick up on their scent. The Toma and Lonnie bump into them, and they end up having to have this huge chase scene. Obviously, just those two have realized that it's them, so that they're kids, that they're humans. So nobody else is really chasing after them. But there's a whole chase scene. You have Emma and Ray basically like distracting the two demons and having them go off in a totally different direction so that Gilda and Don can get the kids to safety. And that like more or less I was never afraid of them getting captured by these demons because I think ultimately none of these characters are going to die yet. But for a moment, Ray and Emma give the demons a slip. And although like they're still trying to distract them to some degree, so they kind of like re-show themselves. But the more interesting part of this whole episode, honestly, is occasionally we get peppers, little sprinkles of other characters dressed up as demons, because that brings to mind humans probably have thought of this way before the kids thought of it. The dressing up as a demon to try to like hide in plain sight is a really smart idea, especially when like the normal thought process of humans is like, oh, well, they're either coming from the farms or they're just like, whatever. And plus demons can generally smell humans. So it's interesting to see potential little hidden people everywhere. And it's during the chase scene when things really start to pop up. At first, I actually thought it was Don, but then I realized this guy is way taller than any of the other kids. Plus, there was 4, so Don, Gilda, and Toma and Lonnie together, and they were like, okay, those are the kids. But there was like this like other guy creeping around them, and he was wearing a cloak and this mask, and I guess you're supposed to think, is this another demon that's sneaking up on them and realizes that it's them? And then he kind of splits off from them, and we cut back to Ray and Emma, who have more or less lost the demons, but then they run into a whole group of these people, and I say people because they're definitely humans, and super prepared humans they are, and oh my god, Norman! He's back! Oh my god! I don't know how, I don't know why, but I'm sure we'll find out in the next episode, or maybe the next episode after that, whatever. Norman is one of these people. He takes his mask off, and Emma and Ray are like, what? Not only that, but the 2 demons get like killed or whatever by this guy with a sword, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, this episode was really interesting. I loved seeing the demon world from a different perspective. It definitely makes you think about the demons in a different way, because up until now, they've all just been, here are these giant monsters trying to eat people, and that's kind of basically it. But now you see that they have their own struggles, and I'm not like trying to like sympathize with them for too much, because they are still eating children out of a jar. But it's interesting to see that they have their own issues, their own problems, their own social structure going on. And it's interesting to see the other side of things. Not only that, but it's really interesting to see. I always knew that there was going to be like a whole society of people living in the demon world and whatever, even aside from Minerva. But I'm so surprised that Norman is part of it. Now, granted, I think that all of this is in filler. Not filler, but like it's anime original content. So I honestly don't know how this goes in the manga, but I'm really interested to see where it goes. And honestly, I'm wondering if maybe this is just like stuff that like the manga creator wanted to like flesh out, but they never got a chance to. But yeah, this was a really cool episode. I enjoyed it a ton. Let me know what you guys thought down below in the comments section, and make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed anything I had to say. I will see you guys in another video. So long.